En riktig god mandagsmorgen og velkommen til Børsmorgen her hos oss i Finansavisen og velkommen til en ny måned, får jeg si, i det vi altså har kommet til 2. september. Mitt navn Marius Lorentzen her sammen med aksjekommentator Karl Johan Molnes på Smestadammen i Oslo. Vi skal få besøk av den relativt nye sjefen i plastgjenvinningsselskapet Agilyx, Ranjeet Bhatia, straks. På en dag der altså USA markerer Labor Day, Wall Street holder stengt, Lifecare har søkt om opptak til Oslo Børs, og SAS da formelt har blitt en del av Sky Team. Og Ove Gusevik er ute av styret i Vår Energi da fra og med i går, i det Etterhvert også da formelt er ute av oljeselskapet. Og så har det kommet et bud på Scana, Sikkerhets Petroleum slapp tall fredag kveld. Driften er i pluss for første gang, sier de, og nå er de i gang med å søke refinansiering av gjelden sin for å få ned rentekostnadene, men vi får jo påpeke at bunnlinjen fortsatt er rød, og kontantstrømmen er også fortsatt da i minus. På kalenderen i dag ellers, næringsminister Cecilie Myrseth legger i dag frem den nye ordningen for grønn industrifinansiering, som departementet kaller det. I en pressemelding, ordningen har en ramme på inntil 5 milliarder kroner og er ment til å nå da nyskapende grønne industriprosjekter i oppstarts- og vekstfasen. Ellers i markedet så er det ventet at børsen vil åpne opp 0,1% fra start i dag av dem med markets. Vi har en nordsjøolje som ligger på 76,40 omtrent, ned 0,8% fra slutten på fredag. Vi fikk jo disse PC-inflasjonstallene i USA også fredag ettermiddag, som Federal Reserve holder et øye med. 2,5% som ventet på årsbasis. Kjernen endte på 2,6. Det var da marginalt høyere enn ventet, og det leder oss jo til markedet ellers, for vi har jo kommet et stykke da fra bunnen i starten av august. Wall Street endte fredag opp med Dow Jones opp 0,6 og S&P 500 opp prosenten, og S&P er nå opp 4. måned på rad, får vi ta med, og ligger ganske solid opp rundt 20% for året. Nasdaq endte opp 1,1% og endte da opp drøye halvprosenten for august måned, redde seg da pent inn på tampen, får vi si. Oslo Børs endte fredag opp 0,5%, og august ned 1,6, opp 10% for året, på linje da med Dow Jones. Ellers i Asia stort sett ned i dag, med unntak av Nikkei som er svagt opp. Og så får vi også nevne at det ryktes da om at Apple er i dialog om en investering i OpenAI, den eneste konkrete leverandøren vi så langt har hørt de skal bruke til AI og Apple Intelligence-systemet sitt, som det er litt uklart om kommer til Europa i det hele tatt grunnet reguleringer, men den tid, den sorg for de AI-interesserte. Skal jeg si god mandag og god morgen, Karl-Johan. Vi får se om vi får noe AI på disse smarttelefonene våre utover høsten, men et bud på Scana kan vi i hvert fall snakke om før vi tar inn dagens gjest. 4 kroner aksjen på dette, hva skal vi kalle det, oljeserviceselskapet?
Ja, det er jo Namibia har funnet olje, og det er et selskap fra Namibia som har lagt inn en ordre på 150 millioner kroner hos Scana, og de har jo tydeligvis blitt så imponert at de vil kjøpe hele selskapet. Ja. Og noe mer enn det vet jeg ikke, så vi får bare se. Det må jo gjøres litt due diligence da. MIG Finance, man kunne jo hatt mindre suspekt navn.
I disse tider med Ukraina og Russland så høres det litt suspekt ut. Jeg merker meg at jeg har hyret inn både Sparebanken Markets og Thommessen da fra styret i Scana. Aksjen endte jo på 2,85 fredag, så det er jo sånn sett muligheter for en pen kursoppgang fra start her. Men Namibia er et interessant land da. Shell og Total har gjort svære funn der nede, som kanskje kommer i produksjon rundt 2029-2030.
Sparebanken Markets er veldig gode på mye, men de har jo nesten ikke noe utenlandserfaring da, så det er jo litt... Jeg vet ikke hvordan de skal gjøre due diligence på dette her. De må jo gjøre grundige undersøkelser her og passe på at de har penger til å betale for seg.
Ja, og at, hva de potensielt kan levere ned til Namibia da. Ja. Det var jo dette PSV Technology som Scana skulle selge ut, som driver med landstrøm og litt sånn, skjønte jeg, som var triggeren her da, for å få til dette salget.
Ja, nei, her må det undersøkes litt mer før at dette går på plass, tror jeg, men vi får se.
Vi får se når børsen åpner om kursen legger seg på 4 kroner, da, eller om han legger seg litt under i påvente at det kanskje er en liten risikofaktor her. Ja. Vi får snakke litt om ellers, for det er jo stengt på Wall Street i dag. En kort uke i markedene i USA sånn sett, da, men vi får jo non-farm på fredag. Forrige måned så ristet jo non-farm-tallene litt i markedet og skapte litt nervøsitet. Tror du det kan komme mye svingninger mot slutten av uken, eller? Det
viktige er jo da at man på torsdag er siste dagen for share buyback, da. Så den som har lyst til å gjøre det, han må gjøre det torsdag. Men den viktigste datoen blir jo 18. september. Da har du både Fed-møte, og da samtidig så får Donald Trump dommen da, i New York, og om det da, hva den dommen blir, om han skal ha rett i Rikers prison, eller Rikers Island, eller han blir fotlenke, eller hva det blir, det jo ikke godt å si, eller man skal ha rett i cella til Epstein, eller det blir, det 18. september, den onsdagen, en dag å merke seg for volatilitet.
Ja. Så får vi se da om det går. Nå virker jo inflasjonstallet i hvert fall komme inn omtrent der Jerome Powell ønsker dem, og litt der hvor han refererte til at også de mener at de kan begynne å endre på kursen, da, som han snakket om på Jackson Hole-talen sin.
Ja, de redd for arbeidsledigheten.
Men hvis den ledigheten begynner å krype enda mer opp, var vel 4,3 den endte på sist, det kan vel tolkes da som et tegn på at her kommer det 0,5-kutt, ikke 0,25 kanskje?
Ja, så har du da 2 uker etter at Share-buybacks viktigste kjøperen av aksjer, og du får jo 2 uker fra de stopper frem til 18. september, da, så det god tid til å skape litt markedsuro, slik at markedet kan ønske seg større rentekutter. Men det siste fredagen før 18. så bestemmer de seg, og den stemningen som da, og det som diskontert i markedet da, det det blir, for de vil ikke overraske markedet. Så det diskontert 25 basispunkt. Fredagen før den 18. så blir det 25, det diskontert 50, så blir det 50.
Ja. Skal følge med. Jeg tenkte også bare å nevne for de som følger med på oljeservicemarkedet. Det en sak på FA nå som har vært å få med seg, nemlig tallene fra Shearwater, dette seismikkselskapet som jo konkurrerer med nysammenslåtte TGS, får jeg si. Jeg har jo varslet at de har luktet på en børsnotering kanskje til høsten. Kan jo være at det blir da første halvår neste år, men seismikkmarkedet har i hvert fall ikke vært så aktivt som Shearwater ventet i andre kvartal, men selskapet beholder da sitt optimistiske markedssyn, og mer om det kan du lese om da på FA.no. Ellers så har Kongsberg-gruppen signert en avtale om å selge sin styremaskin- og rorvirksomhet til et fond forvaltet av PE-fond Norvestor. I fjor så genererte virksomheten en omsetning da på 850 millioner kroner. Ellers så tenkte jeg bare å nevne i dag at vi har noen aksjer som går eks-utbytte i dag, inkludert Hafna, som ligger ned av 5% så langt i dag på børsen. Hovedindeksen ligger ned 0,2 fra start. Scana venter vi fortsatt da på en kurs på, for der har sikringen gått med en gang fra start. Den endte jo da på 2,85 fredag, bud da på 4 kroner fra dette namibiske selskapet. En av aksjene som ser ut til å bli dagens store vinner Sikkerhets Petroleo, som da holder på land i Brasil, som jo vi har diskutert mye i dette studio, men åpenbart at nyheten om at de nå begynner å se noen grønne tall nedover i profiten lossen tas godt imot. Vi skal få inn dagens gjest og tilbake rett etter dette. Plastgjenvinning har ikke alltid vært en solskinnshistorie for en del investorer som satte pengene sine i den bransjen, men de som satser, de gir ikke opp. Og selv om Quantafuel borte fra børsen, så lever Agilyx videre, nå med en, får vi si, relativt ny sjef, også stor investor, og en ny retning for selskapet. Welcome to the show, Ranjeet Bhatia, CEO of Agilyx.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
And as I said, also an investor in the company and not just the CEO.
Yeah, we've been investors since 2008, 2009, so early stage first round of investment that Agilyx raised, we were there, and so it's been quite a journey.
And we have to talk about sort of shift that the company has done now as you entered as CEO. Obviously, you're still believing in it since you're still here, but it appears to me like you're sort of taking a step back and leaving the actual chemical conversion, if you want to call it that, to others, and only focusing on the actual supply and sort of refinement of the raw materials into the process.
That's right, that's right. So we have traditionally been licensing chemical plant technology to other parties, which is a complicated technical proposition. It's expensive, and you're dependent on other third parties to decide to license. And we're really in a new business model now, where instead we're building much simpler facilities at large industrial scale that are supplying feedstock to those chemical plants who used to be our competitors, now potentially our customers.
But is that because the chemical process is just too capital intensive, too big? You need someone like a big chemical giant like DuPont or BASF to do it, or be able to lift it up to a commercial scale business?
I think it's a combination. I mean, yes, the deployment of those technologies are capital intensive, they're more complex, there's more competition. But what we found is over the 10 years or so that we've been designing and engineering for those facilities that we were going to license, we built a really incredible internal capability around feedstock management. What kind of plastics can be recycled? How can they be mixed? How can they be contaminated and still be effective? And so as we started to commercialize licensing our technology, we started to realize that everybody needs this capability, and it's actually one of the major bottlenecks in the market. So for us, it's less risky, to build, own, operate. So it's a little bit different model, but it's a less risky opportunity to really scale to an industry customer base.
So in the value chain, you're sort of positioned yourself between the trash collectors and the chemical converters, right?
That's right. That's right. There isn't really anyone there. So if you're a chemical converter, every chemical converter has a different type of technology. Agilyx has some, Exxon has some, LyondellBasell has. And each one of those technologies needs a slightly different input for feedstock. And to know what that input has to be is where the trick is. And the waste companies don't have that experience because they don't have chemical engineers on staff, right? So what we do is we take in the case of a plant we're building now, 180,000 tons a year of waste feedstock of plastic, and we use off-the-shelf technology, so there's limited technology risk to do sorting and conveyance of product through the facility. But it's being driven by really the brain of it, the software of it is from Agilyx. And it's the know-how of how to combine these different waste plastic streams into the ultimate chemical product that fits the off-taker. And it's that understanding is the waste companies don't have it and the oil companies don't have it, plastic companies don't have it because it's a very unique awareness that we built over 10 years.
And is that what's going to stop them from sort of eating into your part of the value chain then in reality?
I think that it'll be very difficult for
whether you're a waste management company like Norsk Gjenvinning owned by some private equity company or someone in the US.
It'll be very difficult for the waste companies to develop the internal know-how that we built over 10 years of the chemistry behind waste plastic, and the petrochem companies don't really want to get into the waste business. That's not where their expertise is. They want feedstock to run their refineries as efficiently as possible. So we fit right in between those two.
Waste collection obviously works, and then recycling of cardboard works, recycling of metals work, but recycling of plastics doesn't work yet. Why is that?
I wouldn't say it doesn't work technically. It works technically, but there's a lot of unknowns in terms of feedstock availability is a big part of it. And then the economics of the entire process and who captures in the value chain, who captures the value. So it's an emerging market. Things are changing quickly. What we've seen in just the years that we've been in the business of commercializing technology is that the big petrochem companies have been reluctant to make decisions as to which technology path to go until they own or control the technology themselves. And the smaller independent producers of technology have a hard time gathering the momentum around individual projects. So there is this value chain question and who's going to capture the technology and where the economics is going to sit, which is restricted some of the growth.
But you're planning a lot in Texas. Texas is a big state, and there's an enormous amount of space there. I mean, you can drive into Dallas. It's farms all the way almost until you get into the city center, and there's as many people living there as in Nordic countries, and they have material recycling facilities which handles everything. Are you supposed to build these plastic centers inside the MRFs next to it, or are they going to be separate because of fire risk? Or
that's a good question. So it really is separate because we're really Agilyx in these facilities are collecting all types of plastic, which MRFs typically don't. They're taking just the ones that they need or that they can sort for, and then for which they have a market. But we're going into direct to industry, for example, direct to waste producers and saying, send us everything you have, and we'll bring it into Agilyx. And because we're taking everything, we have the economics to then sort for what we need and sell to Exxon and LyondellBasell what they need. And in some cases, the MRFs may be a supplier for us because they may have some residuals that high-value plastic will still go to mechanical recycling, but a lot of what the MRFs have they can't do anything with, which they would send to us. It's more important for us to be located close to the off-takers because of the logistics than necessarily close to the to the
One
marks.
Tomra executive told me once that a plastic bottle is 90% energy, and they had these bottle crushers they put in offices in Japan to sort of condense it. So, but the US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, they say that converting solid plastic waste to fuels with use of energy is not recycling. That's an energy business.
That's correct.
So you're taking energy and you're making it into energy. So we can just stop calling it recycling. You're just an energy company.
I personally agree with that. I think that burning plastic for energy is not what we should be doing. I mean, it's not just the energy in the plastic piece itself. It's all the energy that was produced, withdrawn from the ground, transported, refined to make that one product. And if you destroy it or burn it, you've lost all of the input energy that was built in the manufacturing of that. So I'm a big proponent of taking plastic and bringing it back to plastic versus taking it to incinerators. And I expect incinerators are going to be a source for us. I mean, we're actually already in discussions. They have huge volumes that the government would prefer not to send to incinerators, and we're happy to take it and make it into a valuable product.
But what's going to drive the demand at large scale for this industry? I mean, in Europe, you have the CO2 ETS scheme, which over time can drive up the cost of emitting CO2 when you incinerate plastics, obviously. But in the US, is it the Inflation Reduction Act, or I mean, what's going to actually push the industry to create a real demand for you beyond having sort of these pilot projects?
Well, it's really, I mean, the demand is there. There's over 80 companies that have announced plastic content goals for their products. The brands and the packaging companies are really demanding that this volume be that product
handled and collected,
handled. And so they need it in their products. So that puts a pull on the demand. So then the chemical industry has to meet those requirements from their brands. There's already a significant premium for green plastics over virgin. And if you look at a McKinsey study recently, they're expecting by 2030 there's going to be 30 million tons of demand for recycled plastic. In our case, where we have a Agilyx facility, we've one under construction, second one is coming now, third one will be not too far in the future. At the McKinsey study, there's 300 of those required. So there's tremendous demand. And now the question is, how do you get the infrastructure in the ground to provide the supply?
You just raised $87 million in a combination of equity and a senior secured loan from DNB as well. But can you talk about the mechanics of actually sanctioning these projects, like you're describing, sanctioning the second center now in September? Because you have offtake agreements with Exxon and Lyondell.
That's right.
Basil, right? Is it then just the cost of the facility that dictates whether you get a green light and go, or is it Exxon and Lyondell telling you how much volume they need, or?
So we have the first facility is under construction. It comes in operation mid-25. The second facility is exactly the same. There may be a rail component which could change some of the capex, but it's basically the same facility, same design, and they're taking 100% of the offtake. So we have 178,000 tons coming in, 150,000 tons coming out. About 100,000 tons is chemical recycling, of which Exxon and Lyondell will take all of it. And about 50,000 tons is mechanical recycling. So if it's good quality plastic that the MRF might have wanted, we would also mechanically recycle that. So for the decision-making process here, we're just now in final engineering for site-specific elements of the project that are not related to the actual design of the system, but just in its location. I expect that to happen in the next short while, and then that would greenlight the project.
But is it basically your customers, your offtake, just basically having the need for the volumes that dictate how fast you'll move to the second center or the third center?
That's right. I mean, we have a aspiration, or really a decision is a strong word, a cooperation with Exxon and Lyondell, where we're going to try to build 5 within 3 years. So the second one is now under construction. It's just about to be approved. They have a demand for hundreds of thousands of tons. So, but they also, and I think what I think is productive, is they would like this to be an industry solution. So it's not just them that will be providing feedstock for, but for others. So what I expect in the next 3 is that Exxon and Lyondell will be taking a lot of the volume, but we'll be adding their competitors and other players in the market as off-takers.
So what's the end product you plan to make? Is it polystyrene products, or?
So the Agilyx facilities, which we call Agilyx circularity centers, are taking in all plastics, and they're producing a pellet in this case, which is a mix of the plastics that's mixed in the perfect, let's call it perfect, chemical composition for Exxon. So it's really mixed plastic going back to Exxon in a pellet form, which they can then convert to whatever they want to make it. It could be to naphtha, it could be to polyethylene, whatever they want to make. And each off-taker has a different technology, and each off-taker is producing a different type of plastic. But the common element is they all need access to these feedstock sources, which we will do for each of them, depending on what they want.
The reason I'm asking is it looks like you got an expert on polystyrene on your board, Carolyn Sarah Clark. Is that right?
Well, we have a lot of polystyrene expertise in the business because our conversion business has traditionally focused on polystyrene. But I would say that, but in the development of that, we also did mixed waste plastic years ago. So in the development of those systems, our feedstock management applies to any type of plastic.
It was supposed to take over everything in the 80s, and cardboard came back with fierce with all the fast food restaurants that knocked out polystyrene. So you can ask Huhtamäki in Finland how they decided to stay with cardboard, and that's their strategy still. And even if there were a lot of consultants who said that polystyrene is going to take over the world, it didn't happen.
I mean, it's 6% of the market now, I think, roughly. But that's important that Agilyx is not dependent. It's not in the polystyrene business. It's serving all plastic manufacturers of all plastics.
I remember back in the day with Quantafuel, they had a big offtake agreement with Vitol, and it seemed there was the selling point towards investors was no matter how much we recycle and convert, they'll take it. So the risk is basically nothing. Still, I mean, it turned out to be a challenging project for them. When you look at your business, let's say if Exxon in the beginning says we'll take X amount of tons from your center two. Then after a couple of years, they only take half of that. How easy is it for you to turn around to some other customer and find someone who can then take that specific type of plastic pellet? Or does it force you into a situation where you're going to have to make some significant capital investments to convert the plant to deliver a different pellet?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, I'd outline that or highlight that we have long-term offtake agreements with Exxon Lyondell. It's very unlikely that they're not going to take it. I mean, the blue chip counterparties who, they're committed on contract. But I would say that if we wanted to shift to another off-taker, we have enough tolerance within the system to redirect and change how we produce. So as I said before, it's really the brains of these facilities is Agilyx software and data that's running the decisions on how to make sorting decisions. We could run that brain in a different way to produce a product for someone else with a substantially similar facility. We would make much difference.
And for investors looking at this now, considering whether to put money into this or not, what does the future path look like? I mean, obviously you can see the numbers. You're raising capital for your second center. Is that sort of the scale one can expect for you for the next 3 if you're going to reach your target of 5? Or do you think that you'll be able to raise enough or get a significant enough cash flow to be able to reduce your capital requirements?
Yeah, I don't think that we'll have to raise capital like we did this time in the future. So these, the economics for this one, for example, the second one, is a 15% return on Agilyx's invested capital. So that's about $14 million a year of profits we're going to get from CCC2 once it's operational at the end of 2016. With one included will be about $18 million of operating profit end of 2016. So there's enough cash being generated inside the system to make equity investments in future projects. We've also and this project debt will be available by the third one as well. And importantly, we're getting a lot of interest from competitors to Exxon and Lyondell who want to be part of Agilyx. And what they're open to is capacity reservations where they provide capital up front in return for an opportunity to get offtake on the back end of it. So between industry financing for plants, internal cash flow, and project debt, I don't anticipate there'll be a significant or meaningful equity need at Agilyx for these plants to roll out on the plan that we've discussed.
Do you have any more questions, Karl Johan?
No, we could sit there for hours. I guess we got to stop somehow.
And dig into the specifics of plastic. Do you see any competitors at all in the space you've sort of carved out yourself now in this new strategic direction you're taking?
I think that the competition for waste, individual projects are certainly, and we're not talking to every project that's in construction. And they're all individually trying to solve their feedstock problem by coming up with individual sourcing. And so there are one-offs here and there of companies that are trying to provide a source. But there's nobody that I've seen so far that has an industrial solution that has the competence with the software and the capabilities to produce an on-spec product. So far, we haven't seen that.
Ranjeet Bhatia, CEO of Agilyx, thank you so much for joining us. Vi straks tilbake med mer børsmål rett etter dette. På tappen av sendingen tenkte jeg bare å si at hovedveksten på Oslo Børs ligger ned 0,4% med et sikkerhetspetroleum som ligger på topp over dagens vinnere. Rett foran Scana, får jeg si. 26% har vi på Seacrest. Scana ligger opp nå 21% til 3,45, så da en drøy halve krone under budet da på 4 fra dette namibiske selskapet. Oljeprisen på 76,62 i et børseuropa ellers som ser relativt rødt ut, i det vi altså i gang med det som i hvert fall for amerikanerne blir en relativt kort børsuke. Og det var børsmålen for denne mandag 2. september. Trygve Egnar med oss i Økonominyhetene 14.30. Siste nytt får du som alltid på fa.no. Ha en riktig god mandag sammen. Vi ses.